Again, in conversation with Lorna Dunkley a little earlier. Well, joining us now is the Arab commentator, Dr. Wafik Moustafa. He's chairman of the Conservative Arab Network, which helps British Arabs play a more active role in the Conservative Party. Doctor, thanks for coming in. From a Conservative perspective, what's your take on events these past week and a half or so in Gaza?
Well, as a doctor, a British doctor and chairman of Conservative Arab Network, I'm very concerned about the human suffering on both sides of the conflict. I call upon Hamas leadership to stop using the population, the civilian population, as a shield.
They won't do that, will they? It
was very important for them to do that. Otherwise, sadly, we see people suffering, children, women, adults, people who have mainstream people and Palestinian people, main Arab people are killed unnecessarily. And I feel that it's very important. And of course, Israel leadership should take every humanly possible steps to make sure there's no or very little casualty among the civilian population in Gaza, because that is really tragedy what's happening there.
As we look at these live pictures of an Apache attack helicopter over that border, throwing off chaff against the threat of possible launches of surface-to-air missiles, the probability is, of course, that Hamas don't possess such fairly advanced weaponry, but they do have the capability, and they have used the capability to lob missiles into southern Israel, which is why we have a situation where the Israeli government says that Hamas ultimately is to blame. Now, many people will disagree with that, but not George W. Bush, who is, of course, the most senior conservative leader in the world.
It's amazingly, for the first time, quietly among the diplomatic community and among commentators from the Arab world, the blame is against Hamas' way of handling the situation of Gaza, which is very unusual for the Arab world for the first time to be able to say enough is enough, because we want opportunity for peace in the Middle East. We want opportunity to develop a two-state solution in the Middle East, and I don't think that will be possible with Gaza.
Isn't it a slightly grubbier calculus than Egypt or Syria wanting peace in the region? Countries like Egypt, countries like Saudi worry about growing, burgeoning Iranian influence, certainly from the Egyptians' perspective, on their own doorstep, and it's got less to do with peace and harmony and more to do with a regional power struggle.
Well, there is a big regional power struggle, as you mentioned, Iran, and obviously they are playing proxy for Iran as well, as much as they did
backing
play
Hamas in the south and Hezbollah in the north.
It's basically the same equation, playing the same game again, which is, end of the day, the losers are the civilians, the losers are the common man in the street, and the losers are the Arabs and the Palestinians, and the peace in the Middle East and peace in the world.
As a clinician, as a doctor, excuse me, we've had obviously a lot of focus on the amount of aid getting into Gaza, the number of body bags being processed there effectively. It is always difficult for people looking at the horrible arithmetic of death tolls to embrace the wider argument of principle. Israel maintains the principle of this matter is the right to defend their people from indiscriminate attacks, and they of course say that what differentiates their approach from Hamas is that when we saw that helicopter flying off, it's under orders to avoid killing civilians, whereas the guys with fairly rudimentary Katyusha rockets aren't discriminating. They're trying to kill any Israeli, uniformed or not. They see all Israelis as legitimate targets, and that is an important distinction, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a very important distinction, because the way Hamas has been handling the political situation in Gaza since they seized power, it's been actually a quite dangerous game, and now they seem to me on the lap of the Iranian political agenda. And I think that's got to be sorted out, because we've got to look at the wider picture. We've got to sort out the Middle East situation to avoid the killing and the misery and the situation we see every day from Gaza. And and Palestinian territory in general. I think time have come to really to empower the mainstream rather than extremists. The extremists have been controlling the agenda in the Middle East and in Gaza particularly for some time now. I know they came democratically, but they're not playing the democratic game. Every journalist knows how they followed by minders whenever they visit one of their victims or one of the people who are killed, families, etc. And I think Hamas have been a bad thing, and I feel really Hamas should change its way. Hamas should play within the general rules, within the rules of humanitarian way, by protecting civilians, by not sighting their rocket launchers among the civilian populations or in schools or whatever we've been seeing on television.
Dr. Wafik Moustafa, thank you very much indeed as we look at those pictures and tell you that the Agence France-Presse news agency are talking about American politics. They're also talking about 5 Palestinians, they say members of the same family, killed today when an Israeli tank shell hit their car near Gaza City, and they're quoting local medics as attributing that death toll. Agence France-Presse, 5 Palestinians, the same family killed today, Israeli tank shell hitting their car, that source says. The top stories on Sky News. Eyewitnesses in Gaza say Israeli forces are deep inside the territory with up to 100 tanks